Okay, there we go. Let's try this again. All right. Hi, guys. So I'm going to start doing this thing, maybe probably. A few years ago, I wrote a book based around Bastille songs, and it is one of my favorite things that I've ever written. And I hate that it's just sitting around and not getting any attention. So what I've decided I'm going to do is every once in a while I will cover a song that the book is based on, and then I will read the chapter. And maybe that'll keep me a little more sane, and I can practice my music and my voice acting all at the same time. So I'm going to start by playing the song and then reading the chapter, and you'll have to forgive me. This is my first time. Hopefully it'll get better as the days go on. You'll have to forgive me if I mess up the song, if my cat starts screaming in the background like he did the first time I tried to start this video. Deacon, you have to be quiet. You can play quietly. He likes to scream when he plays. Alright, this is Things We Lost in the Fire. Things we lost to the flame, things we'll never see again, all that we have amassed sits before us, shattered into ash. These are the things we lost, the things we lost in the fire, fire, fire. These are the things we lost, the things we lost in the fire, fire, fire. We sat and made a list of all the things that we had, down the backs of tabletops, ticket stubs in your diaries. I read them all one day when loneliness came and you were away. Oh, they taught me nothing new, but I love to read the words you used. These are the things we lost, the things we lost in the fire, fire, fire. These are the things we lost, the things we lost in the fire, fire, fire. I was the match and you were the rock, baby, we started this fire. Apart and watched all we had burned on the pyre. We were born with nothing and we sure as hell have nothing now. You said we were born with nothing and we sure as hell have nothing now. These are the things we lost, the things we lost in the fire, fire, fire. These are the things we lost, the things we lost in the fire, fire, fire. Do you understand that we will never be the same again? Do you understand that we will never be the same again? The future's in our hands and we will never be the same again. The future's in our hands and we will never be the same again. These are the things we lost, the things we lost in the fire, fire, fire. These are the things we lost, the things we lost in the fire, fire, fire. These are the things we lost in the fire, fire, fire. Oh. So my cat just started screaming at the end there. Next, I will be reading the chapter from my book, chapter 1 from my book. It's called Gone Mad. And this is the things we lost in the fire chapter. Ticket stubs, diaries, photo albums, all of them. A massive collection of books took years and years to build. Her pride and joy. The TV he got her for Christmas, he couldn't afford it and she would never let him live that down. All that shit in the basement. The shit you shouldn't keep but never bother getting rid of. His keyboard. Her guitar. All the kitchen utensils they had double of since moving in with each other as newlyweds. Candles, Christmas lights, her wedding dress, shoes, pillows, pencils, everything. Her and her. Beep, beep, beep. He remembers the sound of the smoke alarm. To this day it haunts him. The smoke alarm, the smell of smoke, hot. Why is the house so hot? Then it's a rush of running. Where is she? Get the baby. Where's the baby? Can't see, can't breathe, coughing and coughing and coughing. Am I dreaming? I must be dreaming. Shouting her name. Where is she? Why put the baby on the first floor? Why put the nursery on the first floor when the master bedroom is upstairs? Horrible idea. Horrible, terrible decision. Coughing, down the stairs, touch the railing like always, hot. Eyes are burning and watering and he can't see through it all. Everything is so dry and hot, hot, hot. Screaming. He had to save them. Her pacifiers, the brand new duvet, a map of the world that he was going to mark his travels on, the first love note he ever wrote her, birthday invitations on the fridge, the ugly turtle statue he had showed up with one day, making her giggle, all the onesies she hadn't grown into yet, her and her. Why was it all so peaceful, tender? He couldn't hear a thing, not his breathing, not the crackle of the walls and the floors, not his screaming, not anyone else's screaming. A 2010 Chrysler Town & Country. Passports, coloring books. An old Kindle, her and her. He woke up as he was being dragged from the house. He had never seen so many flames, never knew a fire could get so out of control. On the news, in the movies, houses were half burnt, garages were gone, and cars were totaled, but not like this. Not this pyre. No way was that house he had spent his life savings on to enjoy with his new wife only a little over a year ago. The fireman must have escorted him to an ambulance and gotten a mask on him, but he tore it away, shouting for his wife, his baby. Where are they? Did an ambulance take them? Someone was shouting that there were possibly still people inside, and he felt dizzy. And he sat down on the cold autumn grass. No way that she was still in there. It made no sense. He watched as the flames licked the sides of his home. It was almost hypnotizing. Neighbors came out to watch the show. The picture of her great-great-grandma in the hall. The rug gifted to them from her cousin. The bracelet his best friend in middle school had made him. Stuffed animals, board games, all that recording equipment, and yet not a song ever sung into them. The plants she kept accidentally killing. Her and her. The sight of her body made him vomit. Because it wasn't her. No way that was her. Where had she been? Where could the flames have burned her that bad? The paramedics did CPR, but she was not her, and all too obviously her, all at the same time. His mom's wedding ring. Poems. Every object holds a memory, no matter how insignificant. And sometimes the thought of the dresser that they got at the garage sale still keeps him up at night. Winter coats and hats and gloves they hadn't unpacked for the season yet. her and her. Her words haunt him for weeks. The first words she said when they stepped into that house: "Our lives will never be the same again. The future's in our hands, and we will never be the same again." Her hands in his. That beautiful, young, hopeful smile. Lord, she was so young. She deserved so much better. Their home, their lives. Her and her. The funeral was small, which is wrong. When you die, you should have children and grandchildren and old friends and new friends and distant relatives and close relatives and all these people you've amassed over the years, whether they actually liked you or not. But he didn't know much about her past because she had left it all behind and didn't like to talk about it. And even when he attempted to reach out to her family, they never called back. And the two of them were living in a big city with nobody but each other. They hadn't had time to touch the lives of their coworkers or neighbors or babysitters. They hadn't had the time to find a church or a craft club or a regular bar. It was just them and their baby. And now it was just him. Firefighters said they found her in the nursery, exactly where he had been heading. He wished he had reached her, whether to save them or to just be with them. His dad was the one who had to leave him away from the graves, where he had just stood over, looking at the fresh dates on the stones, thinking of the burned bodies below, unrecognizable and only destined to become more and more disfigured, thinking about how he couldn't save them, thinking about the empty plot between them. He hadn't wanted to buy one for himself too, but the funeral director said it would be a great investment and we'd mean a lot to her. So his name was right next to hers and always would be, with a date that would inevitably and painfully be later than hers. How he wanted to close the gap between those dates, to fill the hole in the dirt between his young bride and his little angel. They said the fire started in the kitchen and traveled to the bathroom, then the nursery next. No smoke alarms on the first floor. They barely had enough money to buy food when they moved in, barely enough money to buy vitamins when she was pregnant, barely enough money to buy diapers when the baby was born. Who knew that a smoke alarm would be the one thing they really needed? A big, beautiful house and no way to save it. As for the cause of the flames, hard to tell, and he didn't push it. He didn't care. It was too late. He drove home alone. Home. He drove back to the motel alone. He slipped out of his tux and hung it in the closet. He put on the same pajama pants he wore that night. He had washed them 3 times now at the laundromat, but they still smelled like smoke. He would wear them anyway. It was the only piece of clothing he owned anymore. He hadn't bothered to buy more, just pajama pants and a tux. They had fought that night. How could he ever forget that now? Fighting about money, always fighting about money so much lately, too much. He knew now it wasn't worth it. But he was working that minimum wage job at 23, and she was already a bored stay-at-home mom at 22. And she, sorry. Deacon, would you calm your tits? Okay. And she was already a bored stay-at-home mom at 22. She wanted to get a job. She wanted him to get a better job. He kept telling her that he doesn't want a job that will make him miserable, but every time he said that, he still never got his ass up and played that keyboard, and he didn't want her to get a job because he knew how much she liked staying home with the baby. And he didn't want to go through the work of finding a babysitter or daycare or whatever. She had slept on the couch that night, and that's why she was gone. He had passed out quickly, mostly because of the whiskey, not that she knew about that. A deep sleep that was barely awoken by the single smoke alarm on the 2nd floor. He has nightmares of the fire every single night. A cascade of slow motion, stiff trudging, running through the house, sad, wistful violins, screaming without any noise, shattering, everything shattering. echoes of a baby crying. She must have been so scared. He always hears her calling his name through the swelling flames and the music and the shattering and the echoes, always calling him. He never reaches her in time. He wakes with a start. He drinks more. In the good dreams, he has things again. When he has his 2010 Chrysler Town & Country and his TV remote and his cell phone and his railing and his toothbrush and his bedside lamp and everything else he touched daily without thinking about it. And her. Soft skin and blonde hair and warmth next to him in bed. And her. Cradling her when she cried at 5 a.m. He wakes up, a strange kind of touch-starved. Starved to touch all the things that made his life normal and mundane and all the things that made his life. Now ash, now dust, now swept away. The insurance money wasn't a lot. He got a small apartment but refused to think of it as home. Slowly, he bought things he had lost. A new razor, underwear, snacks. Couldn't buy what he wanted, couldn't really afford most of what he needed, mostly just bought booze. Got fired. No job, but that's fine because the insurance would pay for the vodka for a few more months. And the lights turned off. He sits in the dark, and he drinks, and he tries not to think about her and her. He sits in the dark and drinks, tries not to think about all the things he lost in the fire, but oddly enough, that's all he can think about. And that is the end of chapter 1, which is so cheery, but I don't know what else you'd expect from Bastille songs. I promise the story gets happier from there. My main character's name is Gage. I haven't introduced any names yet, but his name is Gage, and I promise good things happen to him eventually down the road. I don't know how often I'm going to do these, but if you're interested, let me know. And I think I'll be posting this on my YouTube too, just to kind of start getting some content out. And thanks for listening to my very depressing first chapter, and tune in for the next one.